Yo, what is up, boys? It is your boy Zeta here, back at it again with another series. This obviously being, what if Deku was the Red Hood? Now, you guys voted for it, so I am here to deliver. But before the video starts, I do have a couple of things to say. Number one, go check out my thumbnail maker down in the description. His name is Dank God. Link will be down below, as well as your boy's Discord server in case you haven't checked that out already, and the link to the Akatsuki, my new group channel featuring Rogex, Izukage, and Phoenix Sani. We are all trying to surpass We the Celestial, so it'd mean a lot if you went over there to subscribe. That being said, make sure you guys go over there, get your snacks, get your popcorn, and get ready for the amazing What If. Okay, so we start our story off when Deku was walking through an alleyway at night. At this point, Deku would kind of just be walking by, and this is when he would notice a group of people. It'd be about 13 to 12 people walking by him, and he would just kind of not really pay any mind to this. See, in the area where he lives at, this was pretty common, and a lot of people kind of like to hang out at night just because, well, that's kind of how his area is. Deku would walk by and kind of feel no mind to this. He wouldn't really care. He'd just be walking home from a day of working. This is when Deku would kind of hear something. As Deku walks and he starts slowing down, he would notice that from the direction that the guys went, he would hear a couple of screams. As Deku would run over there, he'd wonder what's going on. This is when he would see that it's a girl getting mugged for her stuff. It looks like an older one at that. It looks like a mother getting mugged. The guys would all be surrounding her and they'd be ready to do some stuff to her. I'm pretty sure many of you guys know what that stuff is. However, I can't say too much because, I don't want to get a yellow check on the video. So, yeah, Deku would see this and he would immediately go over there and be like, hey, what's going on? As they would be like, beat it, you loser. As Deku would kind of stare at the guys, he'd be like, what'd you just call me? As the guy would be like, you heard us, beat it, loser, or else we'll mug you too. As one of them would whip out a blade and he would then say, nah, how about we just do it? As they would turn around towards him, and only two of the other muggers would kind of be focused on the girl. As this is when Deku would see what was going on, Deku would immediately just say that, fine, you asked for it. His eyes would start shining a sort of red color, and this is when Deku would immediately, all of his stats, his agility, his strength, his durability, everything would go up. As Deku would immediately rush at the guys, he would sweep one of them by the leg and he would smash into him with his elbow, as Deku would proceed to start getting hit in the back of the head with a baseball bat. Deku would knock down onto the floor, and this is when the guys would start stomping on Deku. But Deku, due to the fact that he has enhanced durability, would stand right back up as he grabs the bat, breaks it on his knee, and he throws the other half of the bat at one of the guys who was mugging the girl. This is when Deku would rush at the other one and rip him off of her. As somebody was coming in from behind him, he would go in and hit Deku with the head again, but Deku would duck, causing the guy to hit his friend in the face. This is when Deku would hit one of them in the family jewels, and Deku would proceed to start kind of just doing these guys dirty. He would start flipping over them and fighting in a very, very awesome Batman-esque fighting style. Kind of like in the way that you guys will see me playing in the background, which is, I am playing the Batman video game in the background in case you guys want to watch me. I'm a beginner. I'm pretty bad at it, but, if you want to watch me, I'd appreciate it. So, yeah, Deku basically does that to the thugs, and this is when Deku would finally just be like, you okay? As he would walk up to the girl, and she would just run away. Deku would just say, should have just left. And then he would hold the back of his head as he would say, ugh, that hurt. This is when Deku would walk up to the guys and kind of open their wallets as he would see if they have any money on them. He would take all of it, and this is when a man would jump behind him from one of the rooftops. And this is when Deku would notice that someone was right there, as this was before Deku gets even the chance to do a thing about it, like even a chance to react to what's going on. This is when a man would jump down wearing some goggles, and I'm pretty sure you all know who this is. This is Aizawa. He would land in front of him and wrap him up with a scarf, as immediately Deku would be like, get off of me! As Deku would say, what are you doing? I didn't do anything wrong. Aizawa would say, save it. And this is when Deku would kind of just get pulled in by him, as he would say, a lot of people like you disgust me. As this is when Deku would say that he didn't do anything wrong. He was saving the lady. And Aizawa would say, sure he was. When Deku would whip out a blade that he actually took from one of the guys, he would start trying to cut the scarf, but notice that he can't do it. Deku would start to get progressively angrier and angrier, and Deku, as he was pulled into Aizawa, he would notice that maybe he can get out of this. He would flick the knife at Aizawa, throwing it at one of his legs, and it would almost stab into him, seeing as Aizawa had to dodge. But in that split second, Deku was able to loosen his grip on the scarf and get free from it, leading to Deku being away from Aizawa and standing about 5 meters away. This is when Aizawa would look at him and say, "Kid, you don't have to do this." As Deku would say, "Sure I do." As this is when a fight would break out. Aizawa and Deku would rush at each other. As Deku would start to fight back, he would start to do a very street brawler style, and Deku would throw punch after punch. He'd dodge as many hits from Aizawa, and I can't lie, this battle is very, very even. Like, they're both landing solid hits, and it doesn't really look like there's gonna be a clear-cut winner. But this is when Deku would grab onto Aizawa's scarf and pull him in. As he would elbow Aizawa square in the nose, making his vision fuzzy, Aizawa would close his eyes for a split second, and Deku would finally unveil his quirk. He'd finally be able to activate it once more. And this is when Deku would start being on the offensive end of things. Before, the fight was more even because Deku's quirk was cancelled by Aizawa. But now that he had it back for a split second, Deku would land a thunderous blow to Aizawa's stomach. As Aizawa would be sent crashing into a wall, he would then stand up and activate his quirk once again, as Deku's quirk would be inactive, and Deku's all of his stats would go back to normal, as Aizawa would wrap him up in the scarf again and hang up from the top of a lamppost, leaving Deku no way to escape from there. He'd say, "Let me go, I didn't do a thing wrong." Aizawa would look at him and say, "Well, if you didn't do something wrong before, you did something wrong now. You fought back against a pro hero. Now explain yourself." As Deku would be like, "Ugh." He would then say, "These guys, the ones over there, they mugged a girl and I was trying to save her. But then you came in not even knowing what was going on, and you wrongfully, just decided I was in the wrong." As this is when Aizawa would look towards them and he would see what they had on them, as he would say, "Well, why do you have knives and weapons?" As he would say that he took them off of them. As Aizawa would say, "So you robbed the robbers." And Deku would say, "I mean, when you put it like that, it sounds wrong, but I don't really think I was in the wrong. They were trying to mug that girl over there." Aizawa would then look at Deku and think back to that battle. It's been a long time since anybody was able to put up that much of a fight against him. And in this version of events, this Aizawa will be 2 times more skilled in combat and in combat experience than his than his canon counterpart. Yeah, than his canon counterpart. As this is when Aizawa would let Deku down, and Deku would fall down onto the ground, smacking his face onto the pavement. As Deku would say, "That was that for?" As Aizawa would say, "I guess I'll let him go for now," but not to get into anything like that. As he would then look towards Deku and ask him a question. He would say, "Hey kid, before I go." As he would be looking away towards the rooftop, Deku would look at Aizawa as he stares at his back and ask, "What?" As this is when Aizawa would say, "Are you going to a hero school anytime soon?" As Deku would say, "No." Why would he? Something like that is for people who actually have potential. It'd be a waste on someone like him. He's probably just gonna end up like those muggers over there someday. To which Aizawa would hear that and immediately just say, "Well, kid, to keep it a buck with you, I think I see potential in you." Deku would hear these words coming from somebody who truly meant it. As Deku would say, "Yeah, well, there's not much for me. This world hasn't really treated me well, so why should I do anything good for it?" As this one Aizawa would say that maybe not, but you can prove everybody wrong. You can be better than what they hope you will be. As Deku would hear that, he would then say, "Yeah, maybe." As this is when Aizawa would tell Deku and offer him a spot. He would ask Deku if he would be willing to train with him for the time before the UA entrance exam, and he would help him get into that school. If he was able to get into that, everything would change for him. He would maybe have a better chance at a future. He could become a hero, and he could finally get out of this lifestyle. As Deku would hear those words coming from Aizawa, he would smile a little bit, as he would think, "That'd be nice." He would then tell Aizawa that he'll think about it, as Aizawa would say, "Good." Here, as he would throw a paper at Deku, it would be a crumped up little paper. Deku would grab onto it and it'd be Aizawa's number. Deku would write it down on his phone and he would then end up leaving the area, as this is when Deku would begin to walk home. But on the way there, Deku would start to think back on his past. And this is when you guys are finally going to find out how everything got to this point. See, in this version of events, Deku was born with black hair and black eyes. Deku's mom is, well, still of course Inko, but you know, no green hair, no green eyes. So Deku's born black hair, black eyes. Anyways, that being said, this is kind of how Deku's been living. Deku's mom is a drunk. Inko in this version of events isn't the greatest, and his father is serving life in jail, kind of similar to Jason Todd from the comics. So Deku would end up moving in with his aunt as soon as he was able to realize that his home life was just garbage. His mom never treated him with care, and she kind of neglected Deku a lot. So his aunt, who was the only person who actually cared about Deku in the slightest, took him in. But years after that, things became rough for her, and she ended up going into, well, a bad place. She started taking substances, and that led her down a dark path. And this means Deku grew up without a parent, without love, without care. Deku would grow up on his own, being a little bit of a problem child. We all know somebody like that who kind of just causes problems for the teacher, always gets into fights, always hangs out with the wrong crowd. That's pretty much what Deku did. In this version of events, however, he would actually have a quirk, and this quirk would be an enhancement type. He was honestly your typical thug in the My Hero Academia world, except he wasn't all bad. There was some good in his heart. Some good still left. And this is when we're going to end the flashback. In this version of events, UA is not going to be high school, however, it will be a college just due to the fact that this story won't work if it's in high school. I mean, I doubt it will work at least. Because, I mean, the Red Hood isn't some 12-year-old kid. It's like grown-ass adult. So yeah, this is where we end the flashback. And now, Deku would walk home as he thinks about what just happened. He finally has a shot. Finally has a one-way ticket out of this world. As Deku would write the number down, and he'd send a text saying, "I'm game." As this is when Aizawa would take out his phone the very next day and smile, as he would think that this kid has some potential. If I lead him down the right path, he may be even better than me someday. And Deku would then pass out, as he would wake up the very next day to a message from Aizawa telling him to meet him at Dagoma Beach. Deku would arrive there, as Deku at this version of events has about 1 year to train with Aizawa. And Aizawa would definitely be doing the best that he physically can for Deku, as it is Deku's last year of high school. He's about halfway through the year, and after the 1 year, he's going to have 5 months also to train. So Deku's going to have a long time to train with Aizawa. It's at this point that Deku would meet Aizawa at Dagoma Beach, and Aizawa would tell him that for the first part of their training, they're both going to be cleaning up the beach. As Deku would say, "What? Why would I do that? This isn't training. I knew this was a scam." As he would walk off, and Aizawa would tell him to stop, to turn back around, because if he wants to have this chance, he needs to do this for him. As Deku would turn towards Aizawa and say, "Yeah, you just wanted me to do your work, didn't you? This is all you wanted from me." As he would walk away and say, "I'm gone." This is when Aizawa would grab his arm with a scarf and tell him to come back. "Come on, it won't be that hard. It's training for your physical body. We need you to get even stronger." As Deku would turn around and realize that Aizawa might be onto something. Deku would come back, and he would spend the next 2 months cleaning up the beach. As after the 2-month mark, Deku would say that this is pointless. There's no way he's gonna be doing this for free anymore. He could have been working a normal job, but instead he was wasting his time with him. He's out of here. He would look towards Aizawa, as Aizawa would look at him and say, "Kid, you really are hopeless without me." As Deku would look towards Aizawa and say, "Yeah, well, I'm gonna go back to being hopeless then. It'll be even better than cleaning up some sorry beach for you." As Aizawa would tell him to turn around and try to fight him. Deku would do so, and immediately as soon as the battle would start, Deku would notice that he was stronger than before. His movements were faster. He was less sluggish, and for some reason, he was better. He fought against Aizawa, and this time, even without his quirk, it was more of a stalemate. And Deku was a little happy about this. After this, he would look towards Aizawa as he got put down on his ass pretty quickly by him. He tells him that was awesome. To which Aizawa would tell him that, yeah, that was physical training. I mean, it may not have looked like much, but that's what it was at the end of the day. Deku would spend the next month finishing the beach, and this is when they would finally start their real training. Deku would finally start learning more hand-to-hand combat and martial arts. Deku would learn how to wield knives, brass knuckles, and even guns, due to Aizawa helping Deku get a license to wield one of those. That being said, Deku would definitely be having all of this stuff and he would be learning for the next 5 months how to use these basic tools and weapons. He's an extremely fast learner, just like our original Jason Todd is, and he's an extremely great combatant. He's almost even better than Aizawa himself. Something about his abilities are just incredible. This kid just reeks of potential. Aizawa would look onto Deku as he would notice that the kid was slowly changing. It was working. His training, his time being with the kid led him to realize that Deku had a reason to being why he was. Aizawa would learn about Deku's past, his father, his mother, his living situation, and he would ask Deku if maybe he'd be interested in moving in with him. Deku would look towards Aizawa and say that he doesn't need his pity, as he would say that he can handle himself and that the training is more than enough. Deku would look towards Aizawa as he would say, "So, what's next, teach?" As Aizawa would take off his scarf and ask Deku if he would like to learn how to use that. Deku would say that he doesn't really see the point for learning a little scarf, and Aizawa would then begin to tell Deku that it'd be pretty useful in battle, as Deku would say that yeah, he knows the way he uses it, but he's not interested in that. He can maybe learn how to use it, but he'll take all that learning into different methods of capturing. As Aizawa would listen to what Deku's saying, he'd be like, alright, whatever. And Deku would spend the next year just training straight, like he's going hard on training, right? And by the end of everything, he was about at the level of Red Hood himself, or at least Jason Todd when he was let's say he's about the level of Jason Todd when he was with Batman, right? Before he got kidnapped by the Joker. He's around that level in terms of hand-to-hand combat, physical ability, tacticianist. He's pretty much there. This is when Aizawa would look at Deku and tell him that he's came a long way ever since he's met him. He might slowly be able to defeat himself, even Aizawa himself, as Deku would say that he sure as hell can. I mean, now he's even stronger than he was before, and with his quirk, he could definitely take out Aizawa. Even Aizawa knows this, but if they're fighting without quirks, Aizawa can definitely keep up with Deku due to the fact that it's not like he was just training Deku and just sitting there by, as Deku was the only one getting stronger. Aizawa was doing the same training as well, so they were both keeping up to level. Deku would definitely be stronger than Aizawa with his quirk, but seeing as Aizawa can cancel it, they're kind of equals at this point. And after a little bit, Aizawa would ask Deku if he wants to go grab a bite to eat. Deku would tell Aizawa that he's down, and they would both end up going to a little bit of a place as they would go grab a bite to eat, and Aizawa would tell Deku that, see, this opportunity really was what it was all going to be. As Deku would look towards Aizawa and say, hey, I just want to say thank you for never giving up on me. Even that day when you found me and you saw that, well, I wasn't in the best state of mind, you still saw the good in me. Not like everyone else who just takes me for granted and just says, oh, look at him. He's from a bad place. He must be a horrible person, just some thug. You're different. Thank you. As I would look at Deku as he would say, don't mention it, kid. As this is when Deku would say, really? Thank you. As he would kind of like look at Deku, and Aizawa would say, all right, that's enough sentimental stuff. We got some training to do, and I got some sleep to catch up on. As Aizawa would literally be passed out in his little baggie, Deku would continue training, and this is when we're going to have a little bit of a time skip to the day of the UA entrance exams. Deku, after all this time training with Aizawa, would have finally started learning a little bit more about justice. And instead of finding like a brawler and trying to go straight for like ending them quickly, Deku would learn how to be less threatening, less aggressive, and he would be a better person overall after being with Aizawa for such a long time. It's when Deku would go and take the entrance exam. He would see that there's a lot of people who look different. By the way, Deku never ends up going to the school that Bakugo does. So Bakugo, he's just as cocky and arrogant as ever. So yeah, that's definitely going to play into the story. Hopefully on this, on this part, I can definitely get there. Anyways, this is when Deku would walk inside, and seeing as he doesn't trip, he doesn't end up meeting Uraraka, meaning that, he just goes inside and aces the test. After that, they would go over there to the practical side of things, and Deku, when he's told that he has to smash up some robots, Deku smiles. See, this version of Deku, I mean, he could handle himself with nothing but his fist, but, I mean, it'd be better if he had a bow staff or a sword or something. But Deku's up for the challenge anytime. At this point that Deku's kind of just walking up to the front when a blue-haired boy would stop him and put his hand on his shoulder. Deku would on reflex grab his arm and flip him onto the ground, as he would immediately stand in a fighting position and he'd say, I'm sorry, it's just reflex. As Ida would look towards Deku with anger in his eyes, he would say, "What was that for? How dare you hurt another participant?" And this is when President Mike would be heard on the speaker thing saying that no fights will be had right now. Deku would kind of just walk away, and this is when Ida would basically just be giving Deku a pretty bad look. Deku would look towards Ida as he would say that, yeah, it was his fault. That kid has every right to be angry at him. And Deku would then go on to the rest of the test. As he would walk over to the front like he was going to, Deku would then kind of just be waiting there. And eventually he would get sick and tired of it. As it's at this point that President Mike would come on and Deku would say that he's probably going to say start. So he would jump over the gate and immediately Deku's quirk would activate as his eyes would glow a tint of red. Deku's overall base strength, regeneration, every single stat that the human has would go up, and Deku would blitz over to one of the robots as he would say smash and break straight into it as he's wearing some pretty good gloves that aren't letting his hands get messed up. As Deku would go through, he would start just dismantling each and every single one of the robots, just completely obliterating them. And as soon as he destroyed his first one, Deku would have grabbed one of the limbs from the robot and just started breathing on the robots with a little one-pointer arm. As Deku would proceed to go in there and just start destroying robots left and right. He would notice that the kid with the weird little legs was actually doing pretty well for himself, and Deku would think that that kid might actually be a little strong. This is when Deku would continue to break a bunch of robots until suddenly the ground would begin to shake under him. Deku would notice this and he would immediately say, huh? As this is when Deku would see that everything was kind of changing a little bit, and Deku would say, oh no. As this is when we would see the 0-pointer coming in out of nowhere, and Deku would think that, yeah, that's not his problem to deal with. As Deku would immediately look at the 0-pointer and just be like, yeah, I'm not dealing with that. As he would immediately proceed to kind of just start running away, but this is when he would hear a scream. Deku would hear Uraraka yelling for help, and this version of Deku would think that that's somebody else's problem. She should have never gotten stuck, but a part of him that was kind of lost would snap. It would tell him to move. As Deku's body would just start moving with himself thinking, why is he doing this? Deku would run over to Uraraka and throw the rubble off of her. As he would prick her up and throw her over his shoulders, as he would start, just dashing. He would start hauling ass towards the exit. And this is when the 0-pointer would start rushing after Deku. As Deku would be cornered into a little bit of an alleyway, the 0-pointer would go in to punch Deku, but before he can, Deku would stand there and hold his ground as he would hold both arms in front of himself and block the 0-pointer's hit. Deku would stand there and just be like, go! Now I can't hold it. As Deku would then get crushed under the force of the 0-pointer's hand. Deku would then hear a scream coming from Uraraka as it would say, no! And this is basically where the story ends. Deku gets killed. GG. Bye. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously though, Deku would emerge a couple seconds later, covered in dirt and dust, as he would have ended up jumping away from the hit right at the last moment. As Deku would have ended up surviving, and then he ended up jumping from side to side on the walls to get out of there. After that, Uraraka would rush over to Deku and tell him that she was worried. She thought as Deku would say he didn't. And he would say, is she okay? As she would say, yeah. But she would then ask Deku if he's okay, as he would say that it was no real problem. I mean, it was nothing for him. As she would say, okay, well, I'm gonna go now. As Deku would say, yeah, same. As he would end up leaving the entrance exam, and he would send a text to Aizawa saying that he thinks that went well. Aizawa would send him a little bit of a straight face emoji, the one with like the straight line and like just that emoji that kind of just says, dude, what are you doing? He sent that emoji. As Deku would laugh, and he would end up going home back to his house. As he would slam the door, and his aunt would yell, hey, don't slam my door like that. And she would then say, or else you're not gonna get part 2 for this amazing series unless you smash, say 200 likes. You guys need to smash 200 likes if you want the next part to What If Deku Was Red Hood. However, guys, you guys all know the drill. This is where I'm going to be ending off What If Deku Was the Red Hood. I hope you guys enjoyed the interpretation of the story that I ended up going with. Originally, I was going to do a rehash of the old version that I had on this story. However, I ultimately decided that my heart wasn't really into that same story that I once did, so I changed up the entire story and I went with more of a Deku and like Robin to Aizawa type vibe instead of, you know, the original one, which I was going to go with. That being said, however, let me know what you guys thought of the story, and if in case you guys want to check out another What If Deku Was the Red Hood story, check out my boy Shota Aizawa. He did his own interpretation, which was kind of, he went with the Aizawa route as well, but they were very different approaches that we both took. So in case you guys want to watch that version, definitely go check him out. His link will be down in the description, seeing as, you know, that's my boy. And yeah, it has been your boy Zether, and I am out. Peace.